What up, y'all? UFC T-Dot breakdowns. Like, subscribe, follow, all that good shit. I'm here for UFC 277. Nunez versus Pena. And Rogan, DC, and Anik in the booth. That's always fun. Right off the bat, as soon as they had the little thing where they showed DC and Rogan and Anik talking in the beginning before the fights, DC was like, which camera are we using? That camera? We need to use that camera every time because I'm looking good. I don't know, I just thought there was a funny little moment right off the back. One of the canceled fights of this card was Ignacio Bahamontes versus Ludwig Klein, which is interesting because Ludwig Klein fought last week, so I'm guessing because they knew this fight was going to get canceled, he stepped in. He did step in last week, so that's probably what happened, but usually you don't see a guy who fought last week on a canceled fight for this week, which I'm guessing they canceled that fight prior to this fight, you know what I mean? Paulo Costa versus Luke Rockhold got canceled. I think that would have been a good fight. It's a good comeback for Luke Rockhold, and it's a good test for Paulo to see where he's at now. First up, we had Ryan Kosei, who missed weight, but he came in. I think he was a last-minute replacement also against Blood Diamond. That's this kid's name. Blood Diamond. He's a fighter out of City Kickboxing. Israel Adesanya is like touting this guy. And like in the moments of striking, you could see that this guy had something special. Like he was throwing this such an unconventional strike where he would throw the left hand and then just fall into a left head kick from a left straight. Like who's... I guess this specific fight between these two fighters has been canceled twice in the past. It's basically a striker versus wrestler fight. I mean, it was a good fight, to be honest with you. Blood Diamond, it's crazy because he looks sloppy. He looks like he's falling around, but like, I think he just has some balance issues, but like, he's doing what he's trying to do. Like, you see it when he's successful. You think like, oh, look at this guy flopping around, but then you're like, wait a minute, nope. He meant to do that. Oh, he just landed a spinning back fist. There was a point where they both landed spinning back fists on each other at the same time, which is pretty crazy. Kosei literally landed belly to back suplex like WWE style. He also used a lateral drop at some point, which these are both pretty unconventional takedowns. You don't see them very often in the UFC. Kosei won by unanimous decision. Blood Diamond had his moments, but he needs to work on his takedown defense and his wrestling for sure. And he'll be a scary guy because his striking looked scary, just, you know. Next up, we had Ior Potiera versus Nikolay Nurmagomedov. Don't call him NN. His music was banging, though. It was like this hybrid of like traditional music with like modern music, so it was like a banging beat, but on like some like crazy old-timey horns. I don't know. It was dope music. I liked his music. When this fight ends, it was bananas, right? So Nurmagomedov, he landed this uppercut. Ior was like ducking down, and he landed this uppercut. Mouthpiece went flying, hit him a couple more times after that. Just kneeing him in the face with no mouthpiece. Man, he put it on him. KO second round for Nurmagomedov. Next up, we had Jocelyn Edwards, who missed weight by 2.5 pounds versus Ji Yeon Kim. I really like Ji Yeon Kim. She's such a fun fighter. She's a Korean fighter. It's weird because she moves, her punches, her combos are like slow motion, but her timing and her precision are impeccable. So what happens in most of her fights is very early on, she kind of gets beat on, but she's like tough as nails. And then as the fight goes on and the other fighter gets a little slower, she starts landing. Jocelyn Edwards had a very good game plan. She came in super long, like she throws these kicks where she's like stepping across the octagon into him. Edwards just did a really good job of keeping her, you know, at a distance. I mean, to be honest with you, I feel like Ji Yeon Kim, like when you watch her fight, her style is really interesting and fun. She looks really good, again, in slow motion though. She's from Incheon though. She's Korean from Incheon. I'm biased. I'm rooting for Ji Yeon Kim in every fight. It was a good fight though. Jocelyn Edwards just maintained the distance. She controlled the fight. She landed way more strikes, and that's what happens when you manage the distance like that. It was her fight from the beginning. She controlled the pace. There were some great exchanges right at the end of the fight, and it was a good fight. Edwards won by split decision. Next up, we got Michael Morales versus Adam Fugit. It's basically the matchup of a crafty vet versus a really good up-and-comer. Fugit is the vet, and Morales is up-and-comer. Morales is the guy who's beaten everyone he's ever fought, and Fugit is kind of an overlooked guy. Like, nobody's really looking at this guy, but I mean, look at his record. Look at the guys he's fought. He's a really good fighter. It was back and forth. It was competitive. Morales landed this sneaky little left straight, like Fugit was kind of coming in, and he just booped him. He just booped him. That was like the beginning of the end. He landed that punch, and I'm not sure if he knocked Fugit down, but Fugit went down. He jumped on top, TKO'd him. That was in round 3. Next up, we had Jakar Close versus Rafa Garcia. This is a good back and forth. Jakar Close looks good. Jakar Close is always, he's a guy that when he's in his element, he is just forward movement, pressure, wrestling, striking, like he's just on you. And when he's at his best, he's doing that and he can't be stopped. When he's at his worst, he's doing that and usually impaling himself on a fist. This fight, I feel like, you know, when he puts it all together, that Jakar Close dude is really good. And I feel like this is one of those times where, for the most part, he put it all together. Don't get me wrong, it was a very close fight. Rafa Garcia is a great grappler. But I feel like Close, he really just kind of put it all together. He looked really good. He looked fresh even towards the end. Close won by unanimous decision. So at the end of Jakar Close's fight, he called out Tony Ferguson and said, like, he wants to see who King of Michigan is. And it's like, well, you know, I do want to see that fight. But also, I didn't even know Tony Ferguson was from Michigan. I thought he was from California. Also, listen, man, if we're just talking about MMA, you got it. You're the King of Michigan. I don't think Tony even claims it anymore. And if you're not just talking about MMA, it's Floyd Mayweather, Jakar. Floyd Mayweather's the King of Michigan. Next up, we had Dontel Mays versus Hamby Abdel Wahab. This fight, okay, so this Dontel Mays dude is 6'6", but he fights like, you know, he's on his toes, jumping around. He's throwing like big attacks, crazy stuff you're not expecting. He's very precise with his punching, and he's 6'6", so he's got crazy reach. This Hamby guy is the first Egyptian fighter in UFC, and this cat, every time he hit Dontel, it looked like he hit him with an infinity gauntlet. Like, he hit him so hard. Every time he hit him was so hard. Like, Dontel had 3 really hard hits in the whole fight. Every single hit Hamby landed was a hard hit. Every single hit he landed. And then he was like timing Dontel. Like, so Dontel got this crazy style where he ducking in and out. And at some point, Hamby just had him timed. And every time he came in, he caught him with a check hook. And he'd just be like, bink. All right, I'm going in now. Bink. It was bad the way he was catching with that check hook. But it wasn't just a check hook. He was catching him with check uppercuts. Like, he just had his timing down so well that he just was like, I'm just waiting for you to bink. His counterpunching was off the chain, Hamby, and he hit so hard, like I said. Dontel was off balance the entire fight. He kept falling down, falling into Hamby, and like, I'm not sure if it's because he just was off balance, or if it's because of Hamby punching him and knocking him off balance, or that, like, he kind of fights like that all the time. But I remember him being this sloppy, and it could have just been that Hamby was, you know, hitting him that hard. At some point, Hamby suplexed him. It really seemed like every time Hamby hit, it could have been a knockout. He's smart and patient. Even DC commented on it. He was like, you know, when he hits Dontel's reactions aren't the greatest. You think? Every hit could be a knockout. So in the second round, Dontel landed this big left hand. Like, it was a cracking left hand. And I mean, like, literally, Hamby looked different for the rest of the event. Like, his whole left side of his face was like this. His eye was like this. It wasn't even swollen. He was just like, for the rest of the fight, like, I think he might have broke his orbital. And like, you could see Hamby was like, ugh, I don't want to fight no more. And like, every time, and it was only like 2 more times, but every time Dontel hit him like with a good strike to that eye, it was the same way, like, ugh. But other than that, Hamby was pretty dominant, to be honest with you. I should say dominant. He was definitely the more powerful of the 2 fighters. His punches were affecting Dontel in a way that Dontel only had that type of success with 3 punches, whereas Hamby had that type of success with virtually every punch. You know what I mean? Dontel kept falling down. Once he fell into the bottom position and got ground and pounded, like, Hamby's wrestling is so smooth. Like there was this one point where he just kind of grabbed him and transitioned onto the back. Like he's a really good wrestler considering how hard he punches. He's like a he's been fighting in other events, but he's only got 6 MMA fights, and I mean he looked really good. There's this point where he had Dontel on the ground with his back against the fence, so he's basically in a sitting position with his back against the fence. Hamdi is on top of him, but like on the ground, but he's like posturing and landing these uppercuts. And then of course, for some reason, the ref multiple times in this fight took dominant positions away from Hamdi. Like he'd be on top of him on the ground, and the ref would be like, "Break it up." And it's like he's landing ground and pound from half guard or full mount on the ground, and the ref is standing him up, which is crazy. And there was a lot of complaints about that during this fight, specifically by Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan hates it when the refs separate grappling positions, especially when one fighter has gained a dominant position over another fighter. He said that like the judges begin to move as soon as they hear the boos, and boos shouldn't be affecting the judges. And that's right, you're an impartial judge, especially the one that's in the ring. You should not be affected by fans outside cheering and booing. And the perfect example is the Derek Lewis fight later, but that's in a different video. Abdel Wahab won by split decision. There were really big exchanges right at the end of the fight to the horn. They were just standing in the ring, just giving it to each other. It was a crazy fight, man. What's really crazy though is that so the referees in a split decision, somebody gave the third round to Dontel, and he clearly lost that third round. And it's just funny because DC just goes to Joe Rogan, he goes, "Somebody gave Dontel the third round, Joe." And then there's just a pause. And Joe goes, "That guy needs a talking to. We need to check what he bet on." I love that little moment. Next up, we had Drew Dober versus Rafael Alves. This is a crazy fight, man. Like Alves, before the fight started, when he was warming up in the back, he just was doing backflips. Just backflip, backflip, backflip. Got in the ring, did another backflip before the fight started when they were announcing him. I'm like, this dude finna break his ankles. Didn't you learn from Johnny Walker? He's a Brazilian guy. That's what they do. Very early into the fight, Alves tried to be like, hold on. Can I get somebody to cut my toe tape? And the ref was like, no, get up and fight. But just, I don't know. It was just a funny moment. Literally, the first strike he threw was a crazy spinning, hands on the ground, feet in the air, capoeira kick, which, you know, you just don't see that often. It was a really good striking battle. Alves looked to have the advantage on the ground as far as the jiu-jitsu went, but I think Dober was probably a better wrestler. It was a good matchup, and I mean, as the striking goes, they're both very exciting strikers. So when they were on the feet, it was you know, all action. I feel like this fight could have been fight of the night, maybe. There was an eye poke at some point in round 2, I want to say, and right after that round, that eye poke, man, there was just this crazy exchange, and there was this one point where Alves literally just Roy Jones Jr. Like he just was like, and then he like stepped to the side and did a little dance. Like, now what happened? That's what the announcers said, because they was like, what just happened? You look back on a replay and he just slipped like 10 punches in a row. So DC was like, what happened? And Joe Rogan's response was, he got a little rest. That's what happened. Because Alves was pretty gassed right before that. And right after the eye poke, he just came out kind of on fire again. Drew Dober kept landing this left hook to the body. He was also landing these leg kicks to the body in the same spot. At some point, he landed a left hook to the body, shut Alves down. Right? Drew Dober got the KO in the third round by a body shot. And it's like, I don't even think it was a liver shut-off shot. I think he hit him in the ribs and like maybe cracked a rib or sprang a rib, and that's what stopped him. Because even after the fight, Alves was cool. He was like, yeah, man, yeah. Usually the body shots, you don't really see them grabbing for something that's hurting as much as you see them not being able to breathe. So, but I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't fighting. Next up, you had Alex Morono versus Matt Sullemsberger. This fight was a war. I mean, I don't know how it could have been. Sullemsberger eye was like, oh man, it looked bad. Like he probably had a broken orbital too. Orbital too. That was this one point, like right after the doctor checked his eye, he landed this like jumping switch kick and flying knee thing. It just was an amazing technique. To be honest with you, it was a really good fight. They were both well matched. They're both crafty veterans. They're both ready to go, willing to get into the dogfight. So it was a great fight. Morono won by unanimous decision. He just was a little bit, you know, just a little bit better, but they canceled the Cowboy fight like over and over again. Anyways, I think that's it. That's it for the prelims.